Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 275. What's on our minds? I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live show where we discuss the ins and outs of running your computer repair business. Computer Repair Podcast is brought to you by FreshBooks, the simple, pain-free invoicing solution for freelancers and small business owners. For a free 30-day trial, just go to freshbooks.com/Podnutz. Enter Podnutz in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Let me introduce the co-host. We have John Dubinsky from the Maven Group. How you doing, John?
Jeff, I couldn't be happier, man. Just had Easter breakfast with my family. I ate so much homemade French toast that I'm about ready. I'm just really happy. Let's just put it that way. It's
Awesome.
all good.
And by the way, happy Easter to all. Yes, we are recording on Easter Day because we had a little bit of time and we figured we would put a show out. Pretty much John prompted me to put a show out. So we're just doing what he wants. It's all about him today. All right, let's go ahead. And John, do you have a personal tip or story for us?
Just as usual, two quick tips. The first one is podcast app of choice for me is Pocket Casts. I think you're a Pocket Castee as well, Jeff. Most people know it. They have a fantastic apps for your mobile devices. They also have a really nice web interface that you can subscribe to as well that keeps everything in sync. A la Audible. So if you're listening to a podcast on your phone and you pause it, you can pick it up on the web. Well, lo and behold, thank goodness, Easter gifts to us. Pocket Cast now has a really nice Windows 10 app you can load, and I'll put a link into the show. So Jeff and I are playing around with that. I think it was yesterday, and we enjoyed that. So that was a good time. The other thing is just a little book, maybe a book recommendation. The name of the book is called Purple Cow, Transforming Your Business by Being Remarkable. April 10th, 2009 by Seth Godin. Not a bad read. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. It's just another book just to kind of compares businesses to companies like JetBlue, Krispy Kreme, that kind of stuff. Just ways to set your business apart. Just thought-provoking. Let's just leave it at that.
Awesome, man. That is really good to hear. Yes, reading is good for you.
I thought you were going to say fundamental.
Well, yeah. In the U.S. it is. So anyways, my tip is on OneDrive or any type of syncing backup software that you may or may not use. And what you need to do is make sure that when you have backup programs running a la, I don't know, a Synology NAS, and you're trying to delete files and move files and reorganize everything, you might want to put that thing on pause for the time being, especially if it's just backing up as you go, which is how I set everything up, because I ran into a problem where it's like, you can't delete this file. It's not open. You can't move this file. You can't do anything. So it was kind of a pain in the butt yesterday, and I finally figured it out. I'm like going, oh, yeah, Carbonite's running. My NAS is running. It wasn't Carbonite, because Carbonite's actually pretty good about that. But the Synology, yeah, it was grabbing a hold of those files and go, no, I'm backing them up. You're changing them. I'm backing them. Stop. So anyways, that's my one tip there. The second one is along the lines of OneDrive, and we'll get more into this later in the show. But I discovered as I was moving OneDrive onto my phone, my Android phone, that because I have a Samsung phone, I didn't realize this, but I get 100 gigs of storage for free for 2 years. So I clicked on redeem, and now I have 150 gigs of storage on OneDrive because I'm already paying for 50 gigs at the $299 level. So I thought that was pretty good. 100 gigs for free, not a bad deal, especially since I'm going to start using OneDrive for backing up a lot of my personal files on my computer. More about that later.
And I'll just throw on to that tip as well, as if you get a home premium license of Office, you get an extra terabyte as well, as long as you're subscribed to that as well.
Absolutely. Very cool. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we will get into our main topic. Our show today is brought to you by FreshBooks. Small business owners, it's time to be honest about how you feel when you're dealing with your day-to-day admin work. Yuck. Admit it. You can't stand it. It's a total grind. The truth is, over 5 million small business owners felt exactly the same way until they discovered FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the dead simple cloud accounting software that's transforming how small businesses handle their paperwork. You have things like invoicing, Using FreshBooks to create and send an invoice literally takes about 30 seconds. There's no formulas or formatting. I just perfectly crafted invoices every time. Online payments. Your clients can pay you online, which often means you end up getting paid a lot faster. That's true. Project deposits. There's a super handy deposit feature so you can invoice for a payment upfront when you're kicking off a project. Insights. FreshBooks can even show you whether or not a client has looked at the invoice you've emailed. Did you get that email I sent you with the invoice on it? No, I didn't see it. Yeah, you did, because it shows right here that you opened it up. Gotcha. That's a nice feature to have. This is only a fraction of what FreshBooks can do for you. You owe it to yourself to feel the full effect of FreshBooks on you and your small business. For a 30-day free trial, just go to freshbooks.com/podnuts. Enter Podnutz in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Today, we are going to, since this is an unscheduled show, and we're doing it a little bit earlier because both John and I have a little bit of time.
I think you kind of lied to the listeners at the beginning. You said the show is all about me. It's really all about you.
It's always about me, John. I'm just trying to make you feel better.
Thank God somebody is. All right.
So this show is about what John and I have been up to. So, John, let's just start off with, where do you want to go with that?
Boy, put me on the spot. Hey, to go back to your other topic, I just did a little search on OneDrive on how to get free space. I'll put a bunch of links in here. It looks like there's a lot of ways to get little bits and nuggets and chunks of space into your OneDrive account for free. So,
ooh, nice. Not
being a OneDrive user, I was not aware of that. But so back to your question, what have I been up to? I've been pretty busy. I'm trying to prepare myself for a little bit of a spring break vacation coming up here next week. I'm going to go away for half of the week. So I did a lot of prep on that, as far as a lot of server maintenance this week. Well, it's the end of the month, so that worked out nice. But I like to reboot all my servers, check for updates, just check health and all that before I leave, just to try to eliminate the possibilities of problems happening while I'm gone. The other thing, I've been talking to this guy I know about maybe getting him to focus on one service provider versus another and try to master one set of tools instead of being all over. So we can talk about that a little bit later in the show, but I think that is something that would come up or be a good topic, because I think we try to practice what we preach here as far as standardizing on equipment, standardizing on vendors, mastering the products we use, and that sort of thing.
And that is a great segue, John, because John's talking about me. Again, it's all about me. And so the reason he brought that up is I have been in two different universes, and probably for a very long time. One of them is the Google universe, and one of them is the Microsoft universe. We use Microsoft as an operating system. I enjoy the Microsoft Office products. I've been using them for well over 20 years. I'm just comfortable with them. I like them. To me, they're better than the Google Office products any day. That's just me. Now, it's not to say that other people don't prefer the simplicity of what the Google products bring. The problem is, I was never going to be the guy who had a Microsoft phone, because try as they might, they just couldn't do it. And I always wanted to have a Microsoft phone to collaborate with my computer. Here's the thing. Now with Windows 10 past the creators update, you have the opportunity to tag your phone to your computer. So now you can get notifications from your computer to your phone, from your phone to your computer, no matter what phone it is. And there's some other cool things too that John taught me about. I did not realize. I've been using Google Keep on my phone for just quick notes, shopping lists, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's why I had an Android phone, was for that, but I wasn't using it on my desktop. So he showed me that Microsoft had a to-do list. Lo and behold, sure they did. And you know what? I downloaded it and it works fine. And one other thing, and John, we can talk about this a little bit, but John also taught me about the Microsoft Launcher, which for grins and giggles yesterday, I downloaded it, put it on my phone, use it as my launcher, and I love it. There's no other way to say it. I love it. And so now there are going to be some pain points, because obviously I do have things in Gmail through some of my Google Apps accounts. And the calendaring is going to be a little bit different because there is no, as far as I can tell, there's not a great way to sync between the calendars in Outlook and the Gmail calendars. There are ways, they're just not great. So there's going to be a couple things, a couple learning curves when it comes to that. But so far, as I'm moving stuff to OneDrive and keeping, the problem is I'm so scattered between the podcast and my business and my personal life. I've got stuff everywhere. And when you go to try to find something, I cannot remember where it's at. So that's the dilemma I'm in. And like John said, I want to standardize on what I'm serving my customers with anyways. That's what most of my customers are using. They might have a 2010 copy of Office. That's what they're using. And a lot of them still are using Outlook. Now, I pushed a lot of my customers to the web using Gmail or Outlook.com or whatever, and that's fine. But there are some other things that I need to learn along the way, especially as I start supporting businesses and whatnot.
So let me ask you about this calendar crisis or concern that you have. Are you talking about a one time of exporting your calendar, or do you still want your calendar to sync?
No, I don't necessarily want it to sync. Yes, I can import it. That's not the issue. It's just, here's the thing. I'm a visual guy. And the Microsoft Office products, bar none, are much prettier than the Google products ever will be. I'm just going to throw that out there, except for the calendar. The calendar is old and just, it's not as pretty as the Google Calendar. What I mean by that is if anybody that has an Android phone, you look at your Google Calendar on the phone, I can put it into schedule mode where it shows me these nice little background pictures, and it'll show me what I'm doing, whether it's, working out, and might have some weights and a jump rope or something like that. I know it's so stupid, but I like looking at it that way because I can assess it better in my head as I'm looking at it instead of by the color codes, which I've used in the past, and I can go back to that. It's not a big deal, but that's just one little thing. Now that I've completely embarrassed myself, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, well, if that's the biggest hurdle we got to get around, Jeff, I think you're doing all right. I don't know where the show's going, but okay. Okay, so let's just talk about a little bit of a comparison. Meaning, I'm the G Suite guy. I'm not going anywhere. I do admire and do like a lot of the Microsoft products. I do have, I'd say 90% of my customers are Google customers. And all of the Office 365 work I do, actually, for the customers that use that, I actually farm it out to a partner. I do all the boots on the ground type stuff, but a lot of the stuff, if they're managing SharePoint and all that kind of stuff, I don't use it enough to call myself a quote unquote pro on that. So we usually use a third party that's great that I partner with. So that's great. But if we want to compare basics to apples or basics to basics, so if we start with mail. Obviously, you can use Outlook.com or you can use Exchange online as compared to Gmail. Gmail will sync with Outlook on the desktop. Obviously, it's not as seamless as a pure Exchange sync, but can be done. And I do have a lot of customers that do that, those that insist on using Outlook. So I'd say we have a lot of parity there without any worries. Calendar, I would say you're right. Google probably wins the calendar wars, just from the fact that, in my opinion, it's a lot easier to use. Again, we can get it into Outlook if somebody has to use the Outlook. It is, I've heard that it's much prettier and has a lot more views. I've never used the Outlook app on the Android phone since I believe it was a company called Acompli that Microsoft bought. Acompli? I don't remember. But then, they rebranded that app for Outlook for the phone. And it's all kind of integrated into that one app. So you just open Outlook, and instead of having on your Google phone a calendar app, a contact app, and all that, it's pretty much all built in. So I'd say Google probably wins that. But again, you go back, there's a lot of parity. If we look at Google Drive, a little bit of confusion on the Microsoft side of the house here, because you do have OneDrive and you do have OneDrive for Business. And while they have been working hard to get the feature creep to be the same, and I don't know where exactly we're at, There was a time when I would tell nobody ever to use OneDrive for business because it was very clunky and didn't sync very well and all that kind of stuff. Now I think they've squared away most of that. I believe some of our Microsoft pros will probably correct me on that and tell me that it's working good now because I haven't heard the screams lately. But I think there is now feature parity. So pretty much if you're used to using OneDrive for business or OneDrive personal, OneDrive for business should be the same. And I believe now OneDrive personal also has the placeholders and selective sync and everything now too. Jeff, do you know? Can you verify that?
You know what? I'm not that deep into it because I was using OneDrive between my computers in my office here.
Okay.
And even more importantly, now that I have a laptop that I'm going to travel with, I needed to have those files because, John, we needed some files at our last weekend a couple months ago, and I had to go log into my account and download them on another computer because I did not have them synced with me, which that takes time and effort. So I want to sync everything that I have via OneDrive. Now, doing that in the office makes perfect sense because I can work on one set of tools and get those tools from any of my computers and just use it on that, whether it's a bench machine, personal machine, laptop, etc.
Let's do a little bit of a side tangent on that. So let's just do the basics. We won't get in. We'll leave a talk about Office 365 to the Pro Show and Marvin over there. He talks about that with AppRiver a lot. So if you really want to go in depth on that, I'd push everybody over to that show because B does a great job over there on explaining that. But so let's stay with home users, and maybe we'll call them micro businesses. Somebody that might buy a Microsoft Office 365 Home Premium subscription. Just in case anybody doesn't know that, it gives you a license to install Microsoft on 5 different products and or share that with 5 other users. So you can create a Microsoft account, you register your Office 365 Home Premium with that account. You can either, inside the control panel, you can install it on 5 devices and or you can put in somebody else's email address and share that with somebody else.
Okay.
Kind of confusing, but if you go in there, you can see that. Now, everybody that, if you get an Office 365 Home Premium account, and make sure you check out the licensing and all that when you do this, if you want to be totally legit, you get a terabyte of OneDrive space. All right, as long as you keep that subscription in line or paid up. It's $99 a year is the retail cost for that. There is some ways to save some pennies. You can buy it on Amazon and get the price down. You can prepay a month and get a free month, so on and so forth. All right, the cool thing about OneDrive is, in my opinion, is that it's built into Windows 10. So everywhere you go, you get punched in the face, whether you're a OneDrive user or not, unless you do some scripting or something to remove OneDrive from Windows 10. So that's a beautiful thing. On the Google Drive side of the house, I don't know if most people know this, and remind me, Jeff, and I will add it to the show notes. There is a plugin for Google Drive that you load into Windows 10. So that when you open Microsoft Office and you go to File Save As or File Save, you'll have the Google Drive Save As option.
Correct.
So, so that makes it nice. So it creates a little parity there. The other nice thing, obviously that you mentioned, if you configure your Android device and limited maybe on an iDevice or other Windows 10 machines, you can use the syncing ability if you want to go all in with Microsoft to have all your accounts when you log in. Share a lot of your settings, common desktop, common OneDrive settings. If you use Microsoft Edge, share all your favorites and all that kind of cool stuff. So, talking about living in a, what I would call that, an ecosphere maybe, or some sort of, that's a cool thing. And last year, boy, is it last year or was it the year before? I can't even keep track. Back when I did use a Windows 10 phone, that was kind of my hope. Unfortunately, I was a little bit early on the bandwagon. Did not work very well. Edge was totally horrible back then and not even usable. The Windows 10 phone was great. I did and if they still had it, and I really liked my Windows 10 phone. Let's just leave it at that. It's probably the best phone I've ever used. I had a 950 XL. It was just very solid. Bad problem, no apps. It didn't have my parking app, didn't have, all that kind of stuff. So you lose that. So, that's kind of the Microsoft side. Now on the Google side, I think you get a lot more integration on the phone since you're talking about a Google phone. And then with OneDrive, at least on the business side, there is no Google Drive software anymore. The Google Drive is the service that resides in the cloud, and what businesses load on their desktop now is called Drive File Stream, just to make it really confusing and dumb. But inside Drive File Stream, you will see your My Drive folder, which is essentially your Google Drive folder, and then they have something that is called Team Drives. What Team Drives are is if you are a G Suite user, meaning a business user, and you are the admin, you can set up shared folders, which give you much more control. And those shared folders are control assigned to the domain, not to a user. So if you delete a user, those files don't go away with that user.
Nice.
So, and then on the personal side, I think it's called Google Backup and Sync. If you use Google Drive and you're a personal user, you have Backup and Sync, which does what it says, syncs the files, and then you can select other folders to back up to your Google Drive. By default, a free Gmail account, I believe, is 15 gigs. A basic G Suite business account is 30 gigabytes.
I think mine are only 17.
Okay. Well, a G Suite basic account is 30 gigs paid.
Okay.
A G Suite business account, which is $10 a month, is unlimited or a terabyte or unlimited. If you have more than 5 users in your G Suite account, it's unlimited. If you have less than 5 users, every user gets a terabyte.
And so, I was talking about Google when it was Google Apps that I got for free.
Google Apps for free, I think, was 15 gigabytes.
Yeah, I think I have 17 for some reason. I don't know why.
Probably because you had a Google phone at some point.
Could
and
be.
You assigned that account. You remember, just like you discovered with your Samsung.
Correct. So something like that. Yeah, I got 17, but I think 15 is a standard between both. No, actually, I take that back. OneDrive free is only 5 gigs.
I think it's 5. Yeah. JD in the chat is saying that he uses Dropbox Pro. That's definitely an option. The nice thing about Dropbox is I keep reading that they're getting more and more integration with Google, which kind of surprises me. Or I don't know, surprises me, but, just is interesting.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's one of those things where, and it is the reason I came to this conclusion is because John has been telling me when I bought a laptop and whatnot, he's like, I'm like, hey, what mouse should I get? Now, did I listen to him? No, I didn't, but I asked him anyway. And when I asked him, he's like, Microsoft. I just use the Microsoft mouse with the operating system because I don't have to add or take anything away as far as drivers and software and all that kind of stuff. I can just run it natively, which makes it kind of nice. So I started thinking about that where I live most of the time. And because I have things in Google Drive for the podcast and even some personal stuff, so I could sync it to my phone. And because I have things in OneDrive that I sync amongst my computers, I've got things everywhere. And I wanted to bring everything to one platform. Now, with these apps from Microsoft in the Google ecosphere, you can do that. And it actually makes it really, really easy to do. And here's the cool thing about OneDrive is you don't have to sync all the files that are in your OneDrive folder on, let's say, your primary machine with all the other machines. You can just share the files and sync the files that you want, which makes sense if you want to keep personal stuff personal and keep business stuff business. You're able to do that very easily. So I'm in the process of moving files around, making sure that I've got what I need and just trying to simplify the process. Again, you can spend a ton of time looking for different things and it's just a waste. So I want to simplify things where I'm going to one source for all my information, and hopefully I can name it or tag it in a way that I know exactly where I need to go when I need an invoice or some other piece of paperwork that I'm looking for.
Yeah, let's talk about that just a little bit. When I told you, well, just get a Microsoft keyboard and mouse. The way I'm looking at it, or my thought process on this is, and I'm looking at it from a business perspective. Do I think that the Microsoft keyboards and all that are the best? No, not necessarily. But we're looking for something that I'm looking for something that I'm going to supply to my customers that's going to perform at a business level. Yeah, be well made. That's not going to add any other support, ticket, phone, truck roll, anything like that. It's common. It usually has a Microsoft business class keyboard usually has a very long life. The keyboard that I recommend 90% of the time to the office is the Microsoft Wireless Desktop Set 850. It started out as the 800. It now has, I believe, an 855. The beautiful thing about it is the shape, key layout, and all of that of all those models has been totally identical. So if the office orders keyboard covers, if they're in a medical facility or any of that kind of stuff, then everything stays the same. The batteries, I know how to replace it. If they call me, I have the exact same one on my desk. It's the same thing as standardizing on the switches, the wireless, the computers, it's all that. Now, on your home rig, if you want to go all out and have the keys that light up and, your Cortana talking to you through the keyboard and all that kind of good stuff, amen. But, I'm talking about business continuity, business, stability, all these things add up little by little in the support calls you're going to get.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Now, just as a side tangent, because we're kind of talking about things that we've been doing, I ended up getting a Logitech wireless / Bluetooth mouse because I wanted to use the Bluetooth aspect, which John yelled at me and said I shouldn't be because it's not safe. And I yelled back at him and said,
I'm not
wireless is not safe either, but whatever. So
I'm not trying to be I don't know what the word is.
Tinfoil hat?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just, there's a lot more reliable ways with a wireless dongle to connect your keyboard than to try to use the Bluetooth stack in Windows 10. Now, I will correct myself. I have been reading supposedly in the next big update, it's supposed to get a lot better.
Okay.
But,
the other reason I got this particular mouse, it's a Logitech, and you can hook it up to 3 separate computers. You can actually share files in between the computers, drag and drop, which I'm not using it for that. I don't even have that turned on. But it has rechargeable batteries inside, which means, yes, eventually this mouse is going to get to the point where it's going to have to be replaced because there's no way to replace the batteries as far as I know. That's fine. It'll last me long enough recharging the batteries for a few years, probably as long as this laptop is around. And then when I replace the laptop, I will replace that mouse at that time and get something maybe that's a little bit better. But I actually like this, and it's I can't remember the name of it. Logitech something 2. I don't know. Anyways, I'll have to look that up, and I will add that to the show notes. But anyways, I like the feel of the mouse. It sits high. It gives me a good arch to my wrist and everything, which is important. Wouldn't you say, John?
Comfort is key, Jeff. Comfort is key. And one of the surprising things when I talk about two customers that I have about the Microsoft stack of products is they don't realize everything that's out there, just like you didn't realize everything that's out there. And I think most customers probably don't know about the whole Google stack of products, but there are a lot more Microsoft things out there than most people realize. And I think a lot of people that are using Office 365, even on the business side, and I won't delve deep into there, but if you log into your Office 365 account and go to your applications download page, you will see a ton of things that you probably weren't aware of that are there that are available to you. And not to mention just the default apps that come on your Windows 10 machine, that a lot of them are free. Things like Microsoft Sway come to mind. Help me out, Jeff. Why am I drawing a blank? We talked about a bunch of these yesterday.
OneNote is one that always comes free.
OneNote is free. You can also look at, Microsoft To Do was a big one.
Yes.
Microsoft bought Wunderlist and kind of killed that and then created To Do. Now, To Do does not have the parity that OneNote did, but as far as features, but supposedly they're supposed to be improving that. There's a cool product called Office Lens that a lot of people like. I think you were just talking about that, which will do a whole bunch of things. Obviously,
it's like a portable scanner. It's awesome. You can take pictures of business cards, documents, receipts, whatever, and it's going to save those things and document. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, don't forget about Bing. A lot of times we laugh when we mention Bing. Obviously, it is the second compared to Google, but there are things like Bing Maps. So you have a Windows Maps built into your Windows 10. You have a weather app, Microsoft Photos. So you have a nice sync between, just like Google Photos, you have Microsoft Photos, which actually has some nice features in it as well. If you wanted to, you could use the default mail and calendar app built into Windows 10 with this instead of using their products. And also built into Windows 10 is the Windows Scanner app. It's pretty basic, but you don't have to load anything else. There is a DVD player that you can get built in. So obviously you could always rock with something like VLC or something like that, but that comes. But if you just go to Windows, the Windows 10 store, type in like Microsoft Sway, and then scroll down a little bit and click on Microsoft, it will show you all of the Microsoft apps that are available. And literally there are, I don't know if this gives me a count, but there are a ton of them. Most people don't realize too is, like Google Authenticator, Microsoft has an authenticator as well. So that's a pretty cool product. And I think the one thing it has, at least somebody told me this, you'll have to verify this, is it syncs, meaning it does a little backup of your stuff. I was told. I have not used it, so verify that before you jump right in. But like the Google Authenticator only lives on your phone.
Yes.
So if you get a new phone, that can be a pain. Or if you lose your phone, so.
I am using Microsoft Authenticator for my Microsoft accounts and have been. And so every time I log into a new machine or something like that, it will come up. I haven't used it for products outside of that. I know I also have LastPass Authenticator, which will back up, and it can do that also. I just have not used it to the full extent, but I probably will check out some of those products. John in the chat is asking, what is Sway?
Microsoft Sway. So the best way I can explain this would be a combination of PowerPoints and Microsoft Photos melded together, meaning where you could take a bunch of photos, movies, text, and I don't want to call it a movie, and I don't want to call it a slideshow. Again, I want to call it something in the between there. But you can, create something, a media experience for whatever it is you're trying to display. And the cool thing is then you can make a Sway and share it with somebody else, and then they just click on it to play it. They don't necessarily need Sway.
Nice.
So you can send somebody a Sway. So it might be, I haven't delved into it, but it might be an interesting way to make something instructional for a client, a small marketing piece, or, like they had questions like on a UPS. Well, what are the two different sides? What's the difference between surge and battery? It might be a cool way to do something like that and allow some sort of interactivity and not have to be a video pro. The idea behind it is supposed to be very easy to use. I believe if you go back to a Windows Weekly, I know Paul and Mary Jo talked about it when it first came out.
Yes, I remember that. That was a long time ago. That's probably well over a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it's been around for a while. It's amazing. There are so many products out there that even us as techs in the business that we don't even know exist. Like I said, I didn't know Microsoft To Do existed. Who knew? I'm complaining because I got to live in two universes when I could have lived in one universe by downloading a simple Microsoft app.
Well, here's a cool app that just came out that Microsoft has. And there are combinations of other ways to do that, but this is just so simple, sweet. It's called Microsoft Whiteboard. So what you can do is everybody has probably collaborated on an online document. So you have a Google Doc and you have 5 people logged into it and you can all edit and view it. And, cool thing about Microsoft Whiteboard is like I was at a client and we tossed up a picture of, I don't remember what it was a picture of. I think it was a heating or air conditioning unit. They're an engineering company and they design heaters that go inside of buses and tractors and stuff. So they threw that up there. Well, we had a couple of people from Germany. We had a couple of people in our office and and they were all working on the whiteboard with whiteboard tools, circling, drawing, and all that on this same picture at the same time, which is kind of like working in a doc, but it gives you the same tools that you would imagine that you had if you had a marker in your hand and you were on a whiteboard. So it's a collaboration, just like it says, whiteboard. So right now that's in beta and that is free for all. I don't know where that's going to end up, but I thought that was a pretty cool product.
That is cool. Wow.
And the other one that a lot of my clients that are Excel and data driven and really geeky is they really like Microsoft BI, which is Microsoft Business Intelligence. And there are different levels of that as far as cost, but there are apps for that on all of your platforms as well.
Now, John, let's go back and talk about the sharing aspect, because the other reason that I lived in two universes was Google Drive, the folder structure in there seemed to be easier to share with other people. But I just shared a folder with you before we started the show. Is that just as easy? All
right, there's two different ways I would look at it. Let's start at the base level. and maybe somebody in the chat that can correct me if I'm wrong. You need an account for each service. So you either need a Google account or a Microsoft account. All right, to start there. And keep in mind, you do not need to have a Google address or a Microsoft address to do this. Like I could bring a G Suite business account over and get a Microsoft account with that email address. So I don't need to have an Outlook.com or something like that, or a Live.com or whatever they used to be in the past address. So it really doesn't matter. So all you did is you went into your OneDrive, created a folder, shared it over to me, John at Maven Group, and I logged into my Microsoft account OneDrive, and boom, there it was. And the reverse is exactly the same. The one small benefit that I think Google Drive has, and I don't even know if it's a benefit, over the Microsoft way, and maybe it's a negative. It depends on the way that you look at it. When you have your Google Drive, you can use all the Google platform products, meaning Google Docs, Sheets, and all that kind of stuff, or you can work natively on Office format files. Over in OneDrive, you have just your Office format files. Now, maybe that's better because it's less confusing for the end user, in my opinion. So if you sent me a OneDrive if you sent me an Excel file and it was in my OneDrive, if I double click on it, it's going to open it in OneDrive Online. Or if I double click on it from OneDrive on my computer, it's going to open in Excel on my computer. So, maybe that's better for the end user experience just to have that parity versus opening it in Google Drive, which may change the formatting a little bit, may convert it into a Google Doc, depending on what the end user chooses to do. So,
now, John, even from a business standpoint, do most of your customers still use Office products as far as the Microsoft Office products?
Absolutely.
Okay, so a lot of the things when you're talking about G Suite, you're talking about pretty much the Exchange email that they use in their businesses, correct?
I would say most of my customers. Okay, so let's look at a percentage of customers. Maybe whatever, a small percentage of customers use G Suite, and they don't even know anything about G Suite except for Gmail. They don't use anything else. They don't, and then they're using Office on their computer. And storing their files either on their local machine or maybe on some sort of file server that we have there. The customers that I have that have embraced, well, let's just say they've embraced the cloud a little bit or going to the cloud, there's usually a mixture of both, where they're using Office for some things because, and I would suggest usually that is usually Excel, because Excel is much more powerful than Google Sheets, from what I've been told. And even Word and all that, there's a lot more power in those products. Now, most users don't use that, so G Suite is fine. But where they're starting to embrace Google Documents and Google Sheets and all that are from the aspect of being able to share those with other users, having maybe remote personnel that are not in the office, being able to do all that kind of stuff on their phones. And also the storage of G Sheets, docs, and all that works a lot differently because those documents usually do not count, again, depending on the platform, against your storage space. Or if they do, they're so tiny that you could have so much that it doesn't make any difference. So instead of equipping a remote user with a full laptop and having some sort of VPN or something where they need to log back in to get data and all that, now they can just go out, have a mobile device, hit Google Drive, open a sheet, log a couple things that they need to log on a tracking spreadsheet for whatever it is they're doing or wherever they are, and be done. So, there's a quasi mixture there. I'm okay, Google, later. And I must have said, okay, Google.
You did it again. Oh, hey, John is asking in the chat. He says, John and Jeff, do you have or have you used Daddo cloud devices?
I do not. I have not. Although the Daddo guys just called me yesterday, as a matter of fact. They're pretty heavy on the marketing. I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to think of the name, and I'm Googling as fast as I can. Daddo has a Dropbox type product as well, or at least
they do.
did.
Well, and I would say as far as
Daddo
the
Drive,
products,
yes.
yeah, as far as the Daddo products, Marvin B has embraced some of the Daddo products from like well over a year ago. He's been using them not only in his personal office, but at some of his customers. And it really comes down to, I think they're great products from what I've seen. I think there is a price point that a small business would have to be willing to pay for those products. And that's kind of where it might make sense for some businesses, depending on the size, other ones, maybe not.
So the reason I haven't embraced Daddo actually has 3 products that I would be interested in. Daddo Drive, which is like a Google Drive solution. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me when most of my customers are already Google Drive or G Suite customers. So we just ride on that bandwagon. Daddo does have, I think it's just called Daddo NAS, which is a NAS device that can be used for local storage that also does the backup magic that Daddo does. And then you have your Daddo Alto, which is your backup device, which has some really sweet continuity features and all that. I've never heard anything bad about Daddo, meaning like my data was gone or they're not a good company or so. Usually, I mean, I haven't even heard any rumors of that. So that would lead me to believe that Daddo would be a good choice if that product mix fits into what your customers are doing.
Very good.
Now, just like you said, though, a lot of our friends in the business, Marvin B, obviously, use it successfully. Yep. I'm not sure if Matt Rainey does, if they're Daddo guys or not.
You know what? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think he's thought about looking at the product, but I'm not sure that he has. Maybe this will be what would Matt?
I'd ask who asked that JD. I'd ask JD to maybe shoot a note over to Marvin over at the Pro Show and just say, hey, can you tell us about Daddo Drive, Daddo NAS, Daddo? Do a show on that. And I'm sure that he has somebody that he could probably bring in from Daddo that would be happy to give a sales spiel on that. That'd be a great show.
Oh yeah, that'd be very cool. Good idea. All right. So is there anything else that we need to cover in kind of what I've been doing as far as trying to put everything under one roof as much as I can? Now, this is not going to work 100%, but I'm going to get it'll probably be a 90-10, but at least I will not be so scatterbrained with everything in several, because I've got lots of data in several different slots.
And that's not always a bad idea, depending on how you want to protect it and all that. But we're talking about the usability of that data, right? So by nature, as technicians, we always have that squirrel disease. So let's see the corner of our eye, like, oh man, look at that to-do app. It has a lot of shiny buttons and colors. Maybe I should migrate over to that. And then we spend that huge chunk of time migrating over to that other thing. And where I see this a lot is like with RMM. Oh, I can get it $1 cheaper. Or, oh boy, it has that one feature. And you, I got to laugh because you give me a lot of grief about all the changes I made, the previous year. But, here I go. I'm on month 6 and I haven't made any. So since the last time, but you got to remember, I consciously did that. I went from the Google side of the house over to the Microsoft of the house. I got the phone. I mean, I went all in. I made a lot of changes. I changed RMM products twice, actually 3 times. Not fully, but I was running 3 different platforms at one time, which you can imagine is, just imagine all the different ways I had to look, being old and being Polish and all that. I don't have a whole lot of focus. I'm the rusty hammer in the toolkit. So, the idea is to, what is your desire in your business? Are you somebody that has a lot of free time that you just want to play around with all these different products? Great. I'm not going to discourage somebody from doing that, but the idea is to build in my business is I want to make some money, I want to have some free time, and I want to create solutions. So I'm picking a solution stack that I want to deal with, that I'm recommending and pushing my customers towards. Obviously, customers aren't always going to do exactly what you're pro in, and that is when you partner with somebody else. But, I'm not interested anymore, and maybe I'll do it again in 5 years. If I'm still doing this sort of thing, I'll do my experiment again. But, it was a good learning experience. That's how I learned about all the products we just talked about that I knew nothing about before. But I would suggest you're going to have to do that consciously in your business. Otherwise, create a solution stack that in and out. It will build your confidence. It will allow you to quote, bill, all of that stuff simpler and provide support better. If you don't know a product that your customer wants, if you think it's something you can build into your solution suite, do it. If not, find somebody to partner with and have them do it.
I like it. John, it's funny because you were making fun of me when I said I got a typing app to learn how to type better. And you said, hey, if you need something to do, I got plenty for you to do.
We won't mention what I was doing instead of the typing app.
Exactly. Yeah. We won't talk about not on this show.
Ever.
Yes.
Okay.
But, here's the things that, again, it's all about self-improvement. Could I be a better touch typist? Absolutely. Do I need, can I type? Yes. Very slowly, as John has seen in the past. And so I figured, hey, you know what? Let's take a few minutes every day and just work the fingers a little bit so it becomes repetitious. It becomes where I know exactly where my fingers are. I don't have to look at the keyboard all the time because that's not the type of guy. I wrote basic code well over 30 some odd years ago. And basically punching that in with my finger, like every line of code, and then something would happen and I'd lose it all and have to start over again because there was no way to save anything back then. But anyways, so I want to be able to do things like type a little bit better for the documents and stuff that I'm making and building for my business. Again, short-term pain will bring me long-term easeability in the things that I do in my business. And easeability is probably not a word, but it's something I made up and sounded cool. So anyways. Oh, the other thing too, and John has been gracious in helping me test out, since we're kind of just talking about things that is going on in our business, things that we've been going through. So as a lot of you know, the mixer that I use to record the podcast broke down maybe a month ago. And it's a very expensive mixer. It has some very nice features in it, which I like. It can record onto my computer very easily via Firewire. It has a control that is on my desktop, so I don't have to lean over to control anything. I can control the features from here. It just makes it easier to record, edit, and do what I need to do with the podcast. So I ended up sending it in to get repaired. It was like $43 to send it, $215 to basically get it repaired and have a year warranty on it, which I thought was fine, especially since it's close to $1,000 mixer. So because I was able to do that with obviously not only the network, but also your guys' patronage, those that support the show. So I definitely appreciate that. But one of the things I ran into, and this is kind of normal for the things we run into. The reason I bring all of that up is when I went to reinstall the software that I use for my particular mixer, there was newer software out there. And some of it I had been kind of using a little bit here and there. Some of it wouldn't absolutely work, even though it's supposed to work with that particular mixer. So I had to go back to two programs that I use for recording and controlling my mixer back to December 26th of 2015, which those are 3-year-old programs. And I did that because they're solid. They work. And a lot of times in this business, especially, we're always about, hey, let's upgrade to the next thing. Now, there's times when you need to upgrade for security purposes, but if it's not going to work for you, it doesn't matter how secure it is, it's going to suck to use. So again, sometimes the newest, best upgraded piece of software that may or may not work with your system, maybe that's not the way to go. And if something's not working, that's one of the things you can always remember. Go back a few and try that piece of software to see if you can get an older printer working or an older scanner device, or maybe another peripheral that you use for scanning barcodes or whatever. You might have to use old drivers in order to do that, or old pieces of software that are going to work better even with the modern Windows 10 operating system. Anything to add, John?
No, it's a good point. Again, I think it goes back to that shiny little object in the corner. If you're using it for business, maybe take a little, breathe deeply, make sure you want to do it, have a good restore point to go back to, so on and so forth.
Well, I want to take a quick second, since we're kind of winding down here a little bit. We just want to bring out a special show and just kind of talk about things, some of the things we're doing, some of the things to think about in your business, and hopefully this has all been a help. If you would like to, speaking of Patreon supporters, if you would like to support this show, I would encourage you to go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And I want to thank our newest Patreon supporter, Andy. And I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for your continued support. What that will do is, usually we recommend it's like a $1 a show. There's no more than 4 shows a month that you get charged for. So it's $4 a month. It's a Starbucks coffee, whatever. Help support the show, help support getting equipment, new things. And we have a goal that we want to get to and we'll basically start doing giveaways and different things like that. So the reason I say that is not only that, but we also have a secret Facebook group, which you can get in and actually share in a safe manner. I just did a welcome video this morning, letting people know it's a safe place to share ideas, different things about the podcast and their IT business. And it's a place that you can get help from and not be ridiculed for maybe not knowing something, which in some of the other groups you kind of do. I don't know why, because again, we can all learn from other people, but there's other stupid people out there that believe you can't learn from anybody. But whatever, they're just stupid and they'll stay that way.
Well, that's what we have to decide. We're all a little bit of ignorance. I got a lot of ignorance, and that's what we're trying to help in the group. You know, stupid is as stupid does, as somebody once said. So
Absolutely. So head on over to, again, patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And we appreciate all the donations and patronage that is given over there. So keep it on coming.
well, here's a cool thing. I'll add on to that if I can, because I
Yeah.
really enjoy the CRP group on Facebook. A lot of times I just linger and watch, but you know, you just posted up a great another hey show topics. You know, every once in a while, Jeff tosses in once a month or once every other month. We tossed in, hey, what do you guys want us to talk about? So if you're a member, you actually get to vote on. And Cormac had a great one. You know, taking the next step from break fix to managed services. My first addition to that would be is break fix will never be gone. Cormac, always have your vehicle running because things going to break and you're going to have to go fix it. No matter how much I embrace MSP, things always break. A little bit of humor in that, obviously, he knows that. But you know, and then we all go to, like Ed had a great post on. He's trying to figure out what antivirus to provide for his customers. So there was a lot of people that kind of. You know, I see you commented, Jeff, and a lot of other people posted back on how to help. And I can't remember, there was another one go, oh yeah, Ann was asking, hey, somebody asked me what laptop to recommend or what computer to recommend to a customer. And there was a lot of good feedback on that one as well. I see you posted on that one too, Jeff. Paco stole my thunder. So I'm going to, you know, he said exactly what I would have said on that one. So yeah, it's just a great resource, and it's kind of fun because a lot of stuff when when guys like us run into something and it's a common occurrence, we post it in there. Like, is anybody else having a problem with this? Or so you know, it's almost a good way to be able to find out what's happening in the industry, or if there's a major service outage, it's a good way that you'll start getting poked that something's going on that's going to affect all of us as well. So yeah, love to have everybody there.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, John. And John, I have, since you are here this week and you're not here next week because you're going on vacation, I had that email that you sent me. Do you want to take a few minutes to talk about that?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay.
Oh, is it from Andrew?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, I talked to Andrew on the phone too. So absolutely.
Awesome. So let me go ahead and read this, and then we'll get John's commentary on this particular email. Hello, John. I've been a fan of Podnutz Computer Repair Podcast for quite some time. I've actually been on the Daily Show a year plus ago. I need some guidance on how to better serve a few clients of mine that are dentists or small doctors' offices. One of these clients is a doctor's office for children and has 3 locations within the Tri-County area. They are moving for their medical practice software from cloud to in-house, kind of going backward. They were having speed issues between them and the data center, which is in the same state. Yeah, this is pretty normal. So support from the medical software, Aprima, decided to bring it in-house. My main question is, where can I find the requirements of where to house this server? Currently, the network rack cabinet has a lock, is in an open back room that is accessible by anyone that enters the building. I would prefer to keep the server with the rest of the network equipment, but I don't know if there are any rules that would not permit it to be in an open area. Also, do you have any general advice so I can help my clients be more HIPAA compliant? Andrew Harris. Thank you for the email, Andrew. And John, you had some back and forth with him. So what say ye?
Well, yeah, Andrew and I had a little phone call and talked about a lot of this. But the first 2 things I would say is you and I did a HIPAA show. I don't remember how far back it goes. That would be a great place to look up. Jeff, maybe you can toss that link in the show notes if you'd be so kind. I also give a shout out to David Sims and Donna Grindle. Their podcast, Help Me with HIPAA, talks about this stuff all the time. All right, so to answer Andrew's question in the shortest way possible, I will give an example of my own. So I'm walking through a medical office. We'll just keep everything very generic. I go through, you walk through the office, and as you start dealing with compliance, you'll start noticing all sorts of things that are wrong. Computers are on, nobody's there, but everything's logged in. So I could immediately walk in front of that machine and get to it and copy data to a USB stick or do whatever I want and look at whatever I want. Charts, paperwork, all that all over the desk, that kind of thing. But the funny thing is, a lot of times you'll go back in, you go into an office and they're like, they seem to be doing everything right. Computers are all locked. You don't see a lot of paperwork out. You go back into the back, you go to the server room, it's back. Somebody gets a key, they unlock the door, you go into the server room and you're like high-fiving yourself. But then you notice there's another door on the other side of the server room that you open, and it's a totally unlocked door, doesn't even have a lock on it, and it goes to a public hallway. Or something like that. So there's always that sort of thing. So that's just a funny story that I'll do. And I think they've talked about stuff like that on Help Me with HIPAA before. But, the idea here is there's reasonable and appropriate for things that you need to do to secure equipment or data, PHI, in an office. Reasonable and appropriate is what the instructions say from HIPAA or from the paperwork. So the idea would be is, does the office need to add on a wing to the building in order to create a closet to secure the server? That would not be reasonable, so that's not appropriate. So in a lot of small offices or micro offices that we have where they can't do a separate room, we actually purchase a cage, a metal cage, slide the server into the cage, bolt that cage to the floor, the cage locks. So now we have secured that server. That server is also totally encrypted. So if it still did grow feet and walk out of the door, we're good there as well. So yes, the short answer to that Andrew's question is yes, that server should be in a secure area that not everybody can get to in some sort of locked fashion. That is correct.
All right. Excellent. And good advice as always, John. And this is why we do what we do, because sometimes these questions that are answered via email will help others that are thinking about the same types of things. And I will definitely put that link in there about the show that we did, and it'll have links also to the other podcasts we talked about.
That is in our new OneDrive Microsoft Word show note file.
It's getting there. It's a slow transition. I will have that by the time we meet up next time in the next couple of weeks. It should all be fairly buttoned up, I hope.
And keep in mind with HIPAA, that is a moving target. So again, you have to assess your physical, your technical and all your safeguards and how that applies to you. I'm not a lawyer, nor do I pretend to play one. And my opinions are just that, my opinions, not of the network or the companies that I work for. So keep that in mind, but definitely listen to that HIPAA podcast we did. That's a great primer to start to get your resources. If not, go over and bug the double Ds on Help Me with HIPAA. And start at podcast 1. They're a lot of fun. Listen to them all and make sure you give them $1 or $2 for their Patreon as well.
Awesome. Appreciate that, John. So, John, any last thoughts before we head on out of here?
No, I don't think so. I'll just see everybody on the Facebook group, I hope.
Okay. Sounds good. And we'll hopefully see everyone here. You'll see everybody in the next couple weeks. I'll see everybody next week. Next Sunday, and we've got some interesting guests that are lined up, but want to see more of the people in the group. Also, hopefully we'll start signing up to come on the podcast and share their stories.
That would be fantastic, and happy Easter, everybody.
All right, come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnuts.com/CRP Live. Join in on the conversation by hanging out in the chat room. You can send an email to podnuts@podnuts.com or leave a voicemail, which we'll play on the show, at 734-335-1000. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.